I will give the floor to Jenny now, and she also has a few slides. So if we can also pass the pointer, please.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Lovely. So thank you very much. It's an absolute privilege.
They are all working.
Okay. Hello. Okay. So I'm Jenny Clarke, and it's a real privilege to be here, particularly as I am such a minority amongst all of you who spend your lives and your careers trying to improve rehabilitation around the world. So I have only been doing it for a few years, and I'm doing it in a very, very simple way compared to you. I don't know how many of you have started an organization on your own. I don't know how many of you have actually worked in a startup. But the mentality of a startup versus my personal career experience in huge corporates, in tech companies, is very, very different. So we all can say instinctively it's very different, but actually doing it has really made me feel that I should have done it a long time ago, because it's incredibly fulfilling. It's incredibly exciting to be involved in this. And I'll be very, very blunt and honest with you. This has just happened to us, and we, because of our personal experience, and because of a word that Sarah's already said, because we have visibility, we thought that we would just see what would happen if we launched a charity. So our charity is called SameYou. We are focused on trying to make aware the need for rehabilitation, particularly in young adults after an acquired brain injury. So what does awareness mean? It doesn't mean very much unless you put action to it. And so what we see is really, really important is to allow people who have experienced brain injury to be able to tell their stories and to see where that leads us. As well as doing that, when we started the charity, we raised some money, and we have put money towards innovations, seed funding innovations. So the context of why I'm here is because we have been able to seed fund some major research studies in the US and in the UK. We've been able to launch a nurses training program, a module for postgraduate neuro nurses. It's in the second year with Edinburgh University. And I think really excitingly, we have pioneered tele-rehab, group tele-rehab for people after brain injury. Because of COVID, we were asked to think about what we could do. And so we started that work with UCL. And now we've had over 600 people go through a programmatic approach of tele-rehab. But that's just the context. So why am I here? So my daughter is called Amelia Clarke, and I don't know if any of you are into superheroes or into pop culture, but if you are, you might know her better as the mother of dragons, Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones has been aired in the last 10 years to over 104 countries worldwide. My daughter herself, along with other stars, has got 28 million followers on Instagram. So when she had her 2 brain injuries, her 2 hemorrhages, while she was actually becoming well known as Khaleesi, she was already facing at the same time 2 life-threatening and life-changing experiences. So when she recovered very well, without any obvious signs, we thought, are we just going to leave it like that and say thank you very much and give a little bit of money to the kind people that looked after her? Or are we going to see if we can use her visibility to make a stand? So again, we didn't know what that would look like. So we started to take the action. But what we also started to do was to receive a massive, massive amount of communications back to us. We didn't expect it at all. She told her story in the New Yorker, and she said, now I've told you my story, you tell me yours. And the website crashed. So that was one thing she said to me, whatever you do when we launch the charity, don't crash the website because it just doesn't look good. So that means that the demand is there. And when we're talking about advocacy and different target markets, we really see that the role that we can play is to talk to young adults who've had an acquired brain injury. So I work with wonderful people, and we talk about stroke all the time. And we all know that there is a developed stroke pathway in some developed countries. And we also know that there is no brain injury pathway of the same content and extent. So we do know also that the people surviving a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury, or something else, is so similar to stroke. So why don't we come together and do that? So how are we going to make a change? Somebody asked me just before I stood up to, oh, I'm not standing up, am I? But before I came on to speak, who am I trying to advocate to? Am I talking to policymakers? And I said, no, I'm not. What we're trying to do is to gather evidence from the ground, from the grassroots, from people who really matter the most, people who have actually lived through brain injury and are able to try and pick up their lives. So what are we really trying to say? What we want to do is to gather as much information and come together with one voice, because of course, obviously, I can't do anything without everybody coming together and working with other charities, working with other organizations in mainly the UK and the US. We can really feel the power of that advocacy. And I seriously believe it, because people have said to us the difference that it actually makes to them to know that somebody is in their corner, really trying to call for change. So we've been overwhelmed. We have had over 10,000 people write to us with full stories. And we all know that with social media, the whole world is about storytelling. And so we hope that what we can do is to advocate for change using stories. What we are told by various people is that there is other issues that we have to address. People feel that their support is not given holistically. People are really fearful that their mental health journey isn't covered enough. So what we're trying to do is to, apart from change the slide, is to look at 3 areas where we think we can have advocacy make change. So very briefly, information, understanding, and empathy. So those are really big words. But what does it actually mean to the target audience of young adults trying to recover from brain injury? First of all, we know that people don't have enough information. Now, all of you provide information. The WHO is doing such an incredible job with the framework, but it doesn't always get to people. People need information for self-help and to peer-to-peer support. People need understanding, and clinicians also need to have a detailed understanding of perhaps the hidden symptoms of people. They present with certain conditions, but there is fundamental change that maybe people don't feel confident to talk about to their clinicians and therapists. And lastly, this social awareness need. There is a huge social awareness need for people to have empathy for people with brain injury, because not enough information is known about it. So all I really want to do now is to actually try and remind us why we're all here. And we just have a very short 1-minute video showing people who have talked to us about why they need better, increased access to rehabilitation.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I think our colleagues will help us to play the video, right?
28 years old, and last year I had a brain aneurysm rupture.
I'm Abby, and 8 years ago, I started experiencing the symptoms of a Chiari malformation, a type of cerebellar herniation.
As they built me off into surgery, I remember thinking, if this is going to go wrong, I'd rather be dead than be seriously brain damaged. I didn't want to forget who I was. Sorry, it's quite hard to relive.
Scheduled a surgery where a herniation was removed. That was 1 year ago.
It's been so difficult and quite emotional journey. I still push to have that life back that I had before.
The life that I was living, whether I got better or not, was one worth living.
Amelia sharing her story and creating the charity really changed my life.
Raising awareness is a really important step in helping survivors feel like they can just exist as they are.
You know, if I share my story, and even if there's one person out there who reads it and gets some comfort from it, then it would be worth it.
My future is filled with possibility. It means I can keep going.
But my name is
Thank you, Jenny. And this was really great to bring us to practice, but also to stress what Sarah was saying, the importance of theory and knowledge. And again, in your advocacy as well, you stress how important it is to collect evidence and stories from the grassroots. So whichever level of type of advocacy we do, it goes back to knowledge that we need or have.